62% of all heart attacks in people over 60 happen between midnight and 10 in the morning. Not during a stressful workday, not during a heated argument, not during exercise, during sleep, during the hours when most people assume the body is safe because nothing is happening. And what I can tell you, after working in emergency medicine and cardiac care for more than 2 decades, is that the reason almost never shows up in the chart. You will not find ate dinner too late in the documentation. You will not see didn't drink enough water or slept with the TV on until midnight listed as contributing factors. What you will see is myocardial infarction cause undetermined or ischemic stroke occurred during sleep. The causes that actually matter, the ones I have spent 20 years watching quietly build in patient after patient, those stay invisible until today. What I want to do in this video is show you 8 specific habits that most people over 60 practice every single evening without realizing what they are doing to their heart during the night. And then I want to give you a complete practical blueprint for changing them, not a list of vague advice. A real plan with mechanisms, with science, and with the kind of clinical honesty that most people never get from a 10-minute doctor's appointment. Because here is the truth. What happens to your heart between 10 at night and 6 in the morning is largely determined by choices you made between 5 and 10 in the evening. The evening creates the night creates the morning, and for millions of people over the age of 60, that chain of events is quietly moving in the wrong direction. Let me show you how to change it. Before we get into the 8 habits, I need to explain something that most people do not fully understand, including many of my own patients. And that is what actually happens to your cardiovascular system after the age of 60. Think of your circulatory system as a complex plumbing network with your heart as the central pump and your arteries as the pipes. In a younger body, those pipes are flexible. They expand and contract fluidly. They can handle pressure changes smoothly. And at night, a beautifully coordinated process takes over. Your blood pressure naturally drops by 10 to 20%. Your heart rate slows, your arteries relax. This is called nocturnal dipping. And it is one of the most important maintenance cycles your body performs. It is not just sleep, it is repair, renovation, a full system reset. Here is where it gets important. After 60, that process becomes unreliable in ways you cannot feel. Your arterial walls begin to stiffen. Think of pipes that have slowly accumulated mineral deposits over decades. They do not flex the way they used to. Blood pressure regulation becomes less precise. The hormonal signals that once triggered that protective nighttime drop begin to weaken. The margin between a normal night and a dangerous one gets much, much smaller. And critically, here is something most people have never considered. During the day, your cardiovascular system has backup mechanisms. If blood pressure spikes, compensatory systems kick in quickly. If flow is interrupted momentarily, other vessels can reroute at night. Most of those backup systems are offline. Your body is running on a skeleton crew. One pump, reduced capacity, limited flexibility. That is what makes these hours different. That is why the same level of stress that your heart handles easily at 2 in the afternoon can become genuinely dangerous at 2 in the morning. Not because your heart is weaker, but because the safety net is thinner. And that is also why what you do in the hours before bed matters so enormously. You are essentially setting the conditions for how well that skeleton crew can do its job through the night. So let us start with the first habit. And this one surprises almost everyone because it looks completely harmless on the surface. The first habit is eating your main meal late in the evening. I ask every patient I see about their dinner schedule. It is one of the first questions I ask. And the pattern I hear most often from people over 60 goes something like this: dinner at 7:30 or 8, a heavy meal, pasta, chicken, maybe something fried, a couple of slices of bread, sitting on the couch for an hour or so. Then bed by 9:30 or 10. That feels like a reasonable evening. Most people have followed that routine for decades. But from a cardiac standpoint, what it actually looks like is this: you are sending a large volume of food into your digestive system at precisely the moment your body needs to begin winding down. And digestion is not a quiet, passive process, it is a metabolic event. When you eat a large meal, your digestive organs demand a significant surge of blood flow. Your stomach, your small intestine, your liver, all of them need more circulation to do their work. Your heart responds by pumping harder. Your blood pressure rises. Triglycerides, the fats carried in your bloodstream, climb sharply within 2 to 4 hours of eating. Now, combine that physiological demand with the fact that your body is simultaneously trying to initiate the nighttime dip. Those two processes directly compete with each other. Your body wants to lower blood pressure, digestion is raising it. Your heart wants to slow down, digestion is telling it to speed up. And for someone over 60 with even moderate arterial stiffness, that conflict extracts a real cost. Research published in the Journal of the American Heart Association found that eating within 2 hours of bedtime was associated with a significantly higher nocturnal blood pressure profile. We are not talking about a trivial difference. We are talking about the difference between a heart that gets its overnight repair period and one that spends half the night fighting a metabolic fire. The solution is straightforward. Aim to finish your main meal by 6 or 6:30 in the evening when possible. If your schedule makes that difficult, then make the later meal lighter. Lean protein and vegetables are processed far more quickly than heavy starch and fat. The goal is to give your heart at least 3 hours of relative quiet before you sleep. You do not need to change everything else about your eating. You just need to change the timing. Now, the second habit is one I want to spend some real time on because it is the one most people push back on. And I understand why. The second habit is drinking alcohol in the evening. I am not going to tell you that a single glass of wine will kill you. That is not true, and I will not say it. What I am going to tell you is what alcohol actually does to your cardiovascular system during sleep, particularly after the age of 60. And most people genuinely do not know this. Many people over 60 have a glass of wine or a beer in the evening as a way to unwind. It feels relaxing, it feels harmless, and initially, alcohol does have a mild relaxing effect. It lowers inhibition, reduces anxiety, makes it easier to fall asleep. That is real. The problem is what happens 2 to 3 hours later after your body has metabolized the alcohol. As alcohol is broken down, your body's stress response activates, cortisol levels rise, your heart rate increases, your sleep architecture, meaning the structure of your sleep cycles, shifts dramatically. The proportion of deep restorative sleep, what researchers call slow wave sleep, falls significantly. You cycle into lighter sleep phases. You wake more frequently. Your sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight system, becomes more active. And here is what this means for your heart. That nocturnal dip, the 10 to 20% drop in blood pressure that your heart depends on for overnight repair, becomes blunted or eliminated entirely. Research published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology found that even moderate alcohol consumption, defined as 1 to 2 drinks per evening, was associated with a measurable increase in atrial fibrillation risk. Atrial fibrillation, meaning the upper chambers of the heart beat chaotically and irregularly, which significantly increases stroke risk. There is also a compounding problem that many people do not know about. Alcohol relaxes the muscles of your upper airway. Even a small amount can dramatically worsen sleep apnea in someone who already has it. And I will be talking about sleep apnea in detail later in this video. For now, understand that if you have any underlying airway issues, that evening glass of wine may be tripling the number of breathing interruptions you have during the night. I am not saying never drink. I am saying understand the trade-off. If you have high blood pressure, atrial fibrillation, or sleep apnea, evening alcohol is working directly against your cardiac health during the hours your heart is most vulnerable. That is a clinical fact worth knowing. What can you do instead? Herbal tea, sparkling water with lemon, a decaffeinated drink, something that gives you the ritual of winding down without the downstream cardiac cost. The third habit is one that I think will surprise you because most people consider it completely unrelated to heart health. The third habit is using screens in the hour before bed. Most of us use our phones in the evening. We watch television, we read on tablets, we scroll through news or social media before turning off the light. And the conversation about screens and sleep usually focuses on blue light suppressing melatonin production, making it harder to fall asleep. That is real, and it matters. But there is a deeper cardiovascular issue that almost nobody talks about. Evening screen use, particularly the kind that involves stimulating content, news, social media, emotionally charged material, keeps your sympathetic nervous system activated. The sympathetic nervous system is your body's alert system. When it is active, cortisol remains elevated. Adrenaline is higher than it should be. Your heart rate does not settle. And most critically, your blood pressure does not begin its natural nighttime descent. Research from the Journal of Hypertension has examined the relationship between evening stimulation and nocturnal blood pressure profiles. The findings are meaningful. Extended screen use and stimulating evening activity can delay the onset of nocturnal dipping by 1 to 2 hours. For some individuals with existing hypertension, an hour of evening screen time has been associated with nighttime blood pressure readings 5 to 8 millimeters of mercury higher than they should be at that hour. 5 to 8 millimeters of mercury sounds like a small number, but applied to arterial walls that have lost flexibility after decades of service, that is enough of a difference to matter. Think of it this way. Your heart is trying to power down the building for the night. Screens are like someone running through the building, switching all the lights back on every time it gets dark. The practical solution is simpler than most people expect. Stop screens 60 minutes before bed. Replace that time with something genuinely calming. Reading a physical book, a gentle walk around the block, a calm conversation, not exciting television, not the news. Something that allows your cortisol to fall and your sympathetic nervous system to genuinely downshift before you close your eyes. And here is something worth knowing. Your bedroom itself should be screen-free if possible. When the television is your last sensory input before sleep, your brain remains in a mild alert state even after it turns off. The transition to deep sleep is slower, less complete. The quality of your overnight cardiovascular repair is reduced. Now we are coming to the fourth habit, and this is one where I want you to lean in because this is where some of the most preventable cardiac events have their roots. The fourth habit is taking your blood pressure medication at the wrong time or not taking it consistently at all. More than 60% of Americans over the age of 60 take at least one blood pressure medication. I would guess that the vast majority of them take it in the morning with breakfast out of still work it is. The default, it is what most people have always done. And for some people, morning dosing is entirely appropriate. But for A significant portion of people over 60, particularly those whose blood pressure does not drop properly during sleep or whose pressure actually surges in the early morning hours, morning dosing may mean the medication is wearing off during the most dangerous cardiac window. Here is the biology that explains why this matters so much. Blood pressure follows a predictable 24-hour rhythm in most healthy individuals. It rises in the morning, peaks in the afternoon, and falls during sleep. But among people with hypertension, particularly older adults, a large proportion are what cardiologists call non-dippers. Their pressure does not fall adequately at night. In some cases, it actually rises. This is called nocturnal hypertension, and it substantially increases the risk of heart attack and stroke during sleep. A landmark study called the Hygia chronotherapy trial followed more than 19,000 patients over more than 6 years. Participants were randomly assigned to take their blood pressure medications in the morning or in the evening. The results were remarkable. Patients who took their medications at bedtime experienced significantly better blood pressure control during sleep. And more importantly, they had a 45% lower risk of cardiovascular events, including heart attack, stroke, and heart failure, compared to those who took their medications in the morning. 45%. That is not a marginal difference. That is a life-altering difference. And it comes from a conversation most people have never had with their doctor. Now, I want to be completely honest with you here. The Hygia trial has generated some debate in the scientific community. Some researchers have questioned aspects of its methodology. Other large trials, including the time trial, found smaller differences between morning and evening dosing. The scientific picture is nuanced. What is not nuanced is this. The timing of your blood pressure medication relative to your own personal blood pressure rhythm genuinely matters, and that is a conversation worth having. What should you do? The next time you see your doctor, ask specifically about this. You might say, I have heard that some people benefit from taking blood pressure medication in the evening. Given my blood pressure pattern, is that worth trying for me? That question, that 2-minute conversation, could be one of the most valuable medical discussions you have this year. And if you have access to a home blood pressure monitor, which I strongly recommend for anyone over 60, check your pressure at several different times. Morning when you wake up, midday, evening before bed. If you consistently see your evening readings are still elevated, or if you notice your morning readings are higher than your evening ones, mention that to your doctor. That pattern suggests you may be a non-dipper and that evening medication timing could be especially relevant for you. The fifth habit is one that most people over 60 have quietly adopted without ever thinking of it as a cardiac risk, and they have completely logical reasons for it. The fifth habit is deliberately restricting fluid intake in the evening. I hear this almost every week from patients. They tell me they stop drinking water after 6 in the evening because they do not want to wake up at 2 in the morning to use the bathroom. Nighttime trips to the bathroom are disruptive. Getting out of bed in the dark is a fall risk. It makes sense to avoid them. I understand the reasoning entirely, but from a cardiovascular standpoint, going to bed even slightly dehydrated is a significant, underappreciated risk factor. When your body's dehydrated, your blood becomes thicker, more viscous. It does not flow as easily through blood vessels. Imagine trying to push honey through a pipe instead of water. For a younger cardiovascular system with flexible, open arteries, this might be a minor inconvenience. For someone over 60 with stiffened arterial walls and any degree of plaque buildup, it is a genuinely different situation. Thicker blood, moving slowly through narrowed, less flexible arteries, during a period of reduced heart rate and minimal body movement. That is the combination that explains why so many heart attacks and strokes happen in the early morning hours. It is not random, it is mechanics. The fix is remarkably simple. Drink one full glass of water, about 8 ounces, in the 30 minutes before bed. Not a large amount, just enough to help keep your blood at a safer viscosity through the overnight hours. And keep a small glass of water on your bedside table. If you wake at 2 in the morning with a mild sense of thirst, that is your body communicating a need your heart shares. If nighttime bathroom trips are your concern, this specific amount, one glass, usually does not meaningfully increase urgency. The volume is small, the benefit is real. Now, I want to stop here for a moment because before we get to the final habits, I need to tell you about someone. Her name is Carol. She was 71 years old, a retired school teacher from Indianapolis. Her daughter, who was in her mid 40s, brought her in to see me after Carol's husband had died the previous year. The daughter was worried. Her mother had been having trouble sleeping. She looked exhausted all the time. She had been drinking a glass or two of wine in the evening to help herself sleep, having dinner late because she did not have much appetite before 8 at night, watching television in bed until 11 or midnight. Carol's blood pressure readings at her last annual physical had been just slightly above normal. Nothing alarming, 138/85. Her doctor mentioned it, suggested monitoring it, and moved on. 6 weeks after I saw her, Carol's daughter called an ambulance at 5:45 in the morning. Carol had woken up unable to speak clearly. Her right arm was weak. She had had a stroke. When I reviewed the picture afterward, what struck me was how ordinary the previous night had been. Dinner at 8:30, a glass and a half of wine, television until 11, bedroom temperature at 74 degrees because Carol liked it warm. No water before bed. Blood pressure medication taken at 7 that morning, 18 hours earlier. Every single one of those individual factors was modest. None of them alone would necessarily have caused what happened. But together, stacked on top of an aging cardiovascular system that was already operating with reduced reserve, they created conditions that her body could not correct overnight. That is what I mean when I say these habits load the gun quietly. Not one bullet, a slow accumulation, night after night after night. Carol survived. She spent 6 weeks in rehabilitation. She recovered most of her speech, but she never fully regained the use of her right hand. The retired school teacher who had spent 4 decades writing on chalkboards, grading papers, teaching children to read, lost the full use of her dominant hand to a stroke that happened while she was asleep. And what haunts me about cases like hers is not the dramatic moment in the ambulance. It is the months of ordinary evenings that preceded it. Evenings that felt completely unremarkable because this is why I make this video, not to frighten you, to show you the pattern before it completes itself. Now, let me explain something you may not have heard before, and it directly connects Carol's situation to the timing of what happened that morning. There is a specific window of heightened cardiac danger that occurs in the early morning hours, typically between 6 and 10 in the morning, and it is driven by something your body does automatically every single day. When you wake up, your brain initiates a hormonal cascade. Cortisol rises sharply, which is what actually triggers you to feel alert. Blood pressure surges. Your heart rate accelerates. Blood platelets, the cells responsible for clotting, become more sticky and more likely to aggregate. This is what researchers call the morning surge, and it is a completely normal part of your body's transition from sleep to waking. In a healthy 60-year-old with well controlled blood pressure and good nighttime habits, that morning surge is manageable. The arteries handle it. The increased clotting tendency is counterbalanced by adequate blood fluidity. But here is the critical connection. If your cardiovascular system spent the night under stress, with elevated blood pressure, thick blood, disrupted sleep architecture, and blunted nocturnal dipping, the morning surge does not arrive at a system that is rested and ready. It arrives at a system that is already compromised, already stretched, already working at the edge of its reserve. Research published in the American Journal of Cardiology has confirmed that the morning surge in blood pressure is significantly amplified in non-dippers. In people whose nocturnal dip was blunted, the morning cortisol spike produces a more abrupt and more dangerous pressure elevation. And that elevated clotting tendency, combined with thick blood, inflamed arterial walls, and arterial stiffness, is the exact mechanism behind the majority of overnight cardiac events. Your evening habits set the stage. Your morning biology pulls the trigger. This is why changing your evening routine is not just about sleeping better. It is about arriving at that 6 in the morning moment in a position of strength rather than in a position of vulnerability. Now let's talk about the sixth habit. And I want to be direct with you about this one because I see its consequences regularly, and most people have no idea what it is doing to their heart every single night. The sixth habit is sleeping in a bedroom that is too warm or too cold. Most people set their bedroom temperature based on comfort, personal preference, what feels right, that is reasonable. But your cardiovascular system has a preferred operating temperature during sleep. And outside that window, your heart quietly works harder than it should throughout the entire night. Let me explain both extremes. When your bedroom is too warm, above approximately 72 degrees Fahrenheit, your body must continuously work to release excess heat throughout the night. Blood vessels near the skin dilate to radiate heat outward. Your heart rate remains elevated to support that process. You sweat more, which accelerates fluid loss and compounds the dehydration problem I described earlier. And perhaps most importantly, you spend significantly less time in slow wave sleep, the deepest and most restorative stage of sleep, precisely the stage during which your heart performs its most important overnight repair. Now consider the other extreme, a bedroom that is genuinely too cold, below about 60 degrees Fahrenheit, creates a completely different cardiovascular stress. Cold triggers what is called vasoconstriction. Your blood vessels narrow to conserve your core body temperature. As those vessels tighten, the resistance against which your heart must pump increases, blood pressure rises. And for someone living with coronary artery disease or high blood pressure, that nighttime pressure elevation is not trivial. The optimal range is between 65 and 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Within that band, your body maintains what physiologists call a thermally neutral state. Blood vessels stay relaxed, heart rate remains slow and steady, and most critically, you cycle properly through the deep restorative stages of sleep where true cardiac repair happens. Here is something concrete you can do tonight. Check your thermostat. Set it to 68 degrees if you have not already. If you share a bed with someone who prefers different temperatures, consider a fan on the warmer side, separate blankets, or an adjustable bedding system. This is a zero-cost cardiovascular intervention that requires nothing more than a thermostat adjustment. One glass of water, one temperature setting, two changes that cost nothing, and start working tonight. Now we come to the seventh habit, and this is the one that I believe carries the highest cardiac risk of everything I am going to mention today. The reason is simple. It happens dozens of times every night in millions of people over 60. and the vast majority of them have never been told it is happening. The seventh habit is sleeping with undiagnosed or untreated sleep apnea. Let me paint you the picture of what sleep apnea actually looks like inside the body, because most people imagine it as simply loud snoring. It is far more than that. You fall asleep, the muscles at the back of your throat relax, as they do in everyone during sleep. But in someone with sleep apnea, that relaxation is excessive. The airway partially or completely collapses. Breathing stops. It may stop for 10 seconds. It may stop for 40 seconds. Some episodes last longer. During that time, oxygen levels in your blood fall. Your brain detects the drop. It registers this as an emergency and immediately triggers a stress response. Adrenaline floods your system. Your heart rate accelerates suddenly. Your blood pressure spikes. You take a sharp breath. You do not fully wake up, but your body has just experienced a cardiovascular emergency. And then it happens again and again. 30 times per hour in moderate sleep apnea, 50 times per hour in severe cases. Over the course of a single night, your heart may be subjected to hundreds of these abrupt adrenaline driven pressure surges while the rest of your body remains completely unaware. The cardiovascular consequences of this pattern are serious and well documented. Sleep apnea is associated with a threefold increase in the risk of heart attack. It substantially elevates the risk of atrial fibrillation, the irregular heart rhythm that significantly raises stroke risk. It accelerates the thickening and stiffening of arterial walls. And because it also prevents the deep restorative sleep your heart needs, it compounds the damage across multiple systems simultaneously. How many people over 60 have sleep apnea? Estimates from the American Academy of Sleep Medicine suggest that more than 30% of adults in this age group have at least moderate sleep apnea. The majority have never been diagnosed. They have never connected their morning headaches, their chronic fatigue, their need for frequent nighttime urination, or their difficulty concentrating to a condition that is systematically stressing their heart every single night. Do you snore? Have you ever been told that you stop breathing while you sleep? Do you wake up with headaches? Do you feel exhausted even after 7 or 8 hours of sleep? Do you wake multiple times to use the bathroom? These are the warning signs. Not one of them alone necessarily indicates sleep apnea. But if two or three of them sound familiar, and you are over 60 with any history of heart disease, high blood pressure, or irregular heart rhythms, being evaluated for sleep apnea is not optional. It is an essential part of protecting your heart. The evaluation itself is simple. A sleep study can often now be done at home with a small device that monitors your oxygen levels, breathing patterns, and heart rate while you sleep. No hospital stay required. You get results within a week. And if sleep apnea is confirmed, the treatment, most commonly a CPAP device that delivers continuous gentle air pressure to keep your airway open, is one of the most effective cardiovascular interventions available. Patients who use CPAP consistently experience measurable reductions in blood pressure, significant decreases in atrial fibrillation episodes, and substantially reduced overall cardiovascular risk. One device used during the hours when the damage was occurring anyway. Enormous protection. But here is something the original conversation about sleep apnea almost always misses. And this is the piece I want to add, that most people are never told. Your sleeping position plays a far larger role than most doctors take the time to explain. Sleep apnea is significantly worse in what is called the supine position. Lying flat on your back, in this position, gravity pulls the relaxed tissues of your throat directly downward, compressing the airway more severely. For some individuals, what is classified as severe sleep apnea in the supine position becomes mild or even absent when they sleep on their side. The airway geometry changes completely. This is called positional sleep apnea, and research published in Sleep Medicine Review suggests it accounts for more than 50% of all sleep apnea cases. The simple act of consistently sleeping on your side rather than your back can, for many people, cut the number of apnea episodes in half or more. How do you stay on your side? A few practical approaches. Place a firm pillow behind your back to prevent rolling over during the night. Some people sew a tennis ball into the back of their sleep shirt, which creates enough discomfort when rolling onto the back to trigger an unconscious position change. Dedicated positional therapy devices are also available that use gentle vibration to discourage back sleeping. They are inexpensive and widely available. For positioning during side sleeping, the height of your pillow also matters. A pillow that keeps your neck in a neutral position, neither tilted down nor strained upward, optimizes both airway diameter and venous return to the heart. This is particularly relevant for anyone with mild heart failure, where fluid management during sleep becomes important. These are not complicated interventions. They are genuinely useful changes that start working the first night you implement them. Now we come to the eighth habit. And this one is different from everything else I have described today. Because instead of a habit that causes harm, this is a habit that is missing something most people over 60 should be doing every evening that they are not. The eighth habit is ignoring the most useful indicator of your heart's overnight health, your heart rate variability. Let me explain what this means and why it is more important than most people realize. Heart rate variability, which doctors refer to as HRV, is a measure of the tiny fluctuations in the time between each heartbeat. A healthy heart does not beat like a metronome at exactly the same interval every single time. It varies slightly from beat to beat, expanding and contracting the interval in response to breathing, movement, and nervous system signals. This variability is actually a sign of cardiovascular health and resilience. When your HRV is high, your heart's rhythm is flexible and adaptive. Your autonomic nervous system, the system that controls functions you do not have to think about, including heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing rhythm, is well balanced between its two main branches. The parasympathetic branch, which promotes rest and recovery, is active. This is the state your heart needs to be in during sleep for effective overnight repair. When your HRV is low, the picture reverses. Your heart is beating in a more rigid, inflexible pattern. The sympathetic nervous system, the alert and stress branch, is dominating. And here is the critical point. HRV is consistently lower in people who have elevated cardiac risk. A 2021 scientific statement from the American Heart Association acknowledged HRV as a meaningful marker of cardiovascular health and autonomic nervous system function. Here is why this matters for you practically. HRV is measurable. Many consumer wearable devices, including certain models of well-known fitness trackers and smartwatches, now measure HRV during sleep. They give you a number each morning that reflects the quality of your overnight cardiac recovery. And what that number reflects, directly and measurably, is the cumulative effect of your evening habits. Drink alcohol the night before. Your HRV drops significantly. Eat a heavy late dinner, HRV drops. Sleep in a warm room with screens on until midnight, HRV drops. Use CPAP consistently and sleep in an optimal position. HRV rises. Stay properly hydrated. HRV rises. Eat dinner by 6:30 and spend the evening in quiet activity. HRV rises. In my clinical experience, giving patients a visible number that changes in direct response to their behavior is one of the most powerful motivational tools available. It transforms abstract advice into personal feedback. If you have a wearable device, start paying attention to your HRV trend over time. If you do not, Many devices in the moderate price range now provide this measurement. You do not need to understand the complex physiology behind HRV. You just need to know that a higher number consistently reflects a cardiovascular system that is recovering well during sleep, and a declining trend is an early signal worth paying attention to, ideally before it becomes a symptom. Think of it as a report card, not a test you need to ace every single night, because one bad night means very little. A trend across weeks and months tells you something real about how your heart is managing the demands you are placing on it. Now, I want to bring everything together because we have covered a significant amount of ground today. And I want to make sure you leave with something you can actually use tonight, not tomorrow, tonight. Here is what I call the complete evening heart protocol. It is 8 steps that follow a natural progression through your evening. None of them are extreme. None of them require willpower or deprivation. They simply require awareness. And done consistently, they transform the nightly environment your heart operates in. Step 1 happens at 6 to 6:30 in the evening. Finish your main meal. A reasonable portion of lean protein, vegetables, and a modest amount of starch if you need it. Not a fast, not a diet, just a sensible dinner at a sensible hour. You are giving your cardiovascular system 3 to 4 hours to complete the work of digestion before you sleep. Step 2 happens at 7 o'clock. This is your water and medication checkpoint. Drink a full glass of water. Take a moment to think about your blood pressure medication. If you have never had a specific conversation with your doctor about whether evening dosing makes sense for you, put that on your list. That one conversation has the potential to change your nighttime blood pressure profile in ways that meaningfully reduce your risk. Step 3 begins at 8 o'clock. This is when you power down stimulation, not when you go to bed. 2 hours before you go to bed, screens off, or at least switch to calm content. The news is not calm content. Social media is not calm content. Something that allows your cortisol to fall and your sympathetic nervous system to genuinely settle. A book, gentle music, a slow walk around the block, conversation. Your cardiovascular system needs this runway to begin its nighttime descent. Step 4 is your bedroom preparation at 9 o'clock. Check the thermostat. 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit is the target range. Place a glass of water on your bedside table. If you snore or have been told you stop breathing during sleep, arrange your pillows so that side sleeping is comfortable and sustainable. A pillow behind your back helps prevent rolling over. Step 5 is your actual sleep position when you get into bed. Side sleeping, not back sleeping. If you have a partner who snores heavily, this conversation about evaluation for sleep apnea is worth having gently and persistently, because their risk is real, and so is the disruption to your own sleep quality. Step 6, if you track HRV on a wearable device, note your reading each morning, not obsessively, just as a trend. Watch how it responds to specific changes in your evening routine. That feedback loop makes abstract health habits concrete. Step 7 is a brief morning ritual that takes 30 seconds. Before you get out of bed, sit up slowly and pause for 30 seconds before standing. This allows your blood pressure to stabilize before the demands of full upright posture. It is particularly important for anyone who has ever felt dizzy upon standing, a sensation called orthostatic hypotension that becomes more common after 60. That brief pause is not laziness. It is cardiac awareness. Step 8 is the most important one, and it costs nothing at all. Tell someone you trust about these habits. A spouse, a grown child, a close friend. Because the most powerful thing I have seen in clinical practice is not a medication or a device. It is a person who has a partner checking in on them. Accountability is the habit that makes all the other habits stick. Now, let me bring this all the way home with the recap you can carry with you. 8 habits, 8 solutions, and a single underlying truth that connects all of them. Your heart does not fail suddenly. It fails slowly, quietly, in the background of 1,000 ordinary evenings, while you are doing things that feel completely normal. The late dinner, the evening wine, the television on until midnight, the warm bedroom, the blood pressure pill taken at the wrong time, the snoring that nobody took seriously, the water you stopped drinking because you did not want to get up at night. None of these things seem dangerous. That is exactly what makes them dangerous. But here is the other side of that truth, and this is the part I want you to hold on to. These habits are changeable tonight, not with a dramatic overhaul, not with perfect execution from the very first evening, with small, real adjustments that accumulate over time, the same way the damage did, slowly, quietly, in the same direction. The body that whispered danger through a decade of disrupted sleep can also whisper its way back toward resilience. Not all the way back, not overnight, but measurably, meaningfully, in a direction that protects what matters most: your ability to wake up tomorrow, your ability to stay independent, your ability to be present for the people who matter to you. Here is the pattern to remember, and I want you to be able to repeat this back to yourself tonight before you go to sleep. Eat early, drink water, skip the evening wine, or understand its cost. Turn screens off at 8, set the thermostat to 68, take your medication at the right time for your biology. Sleep on your side. And if you snore, get evaluated. Your heart is worth the conversation. If you take one action from today's video, let it be this: sit down tonight before you go to bed and honestly evaluate how many of these 8 habits are currently part of your evening routine. Not with self-criticism, with curiosity, because the goal is not perfection. The goal is pattern recognition. The goal is noticing what your evenings are doing to the hours your heart relies on most. Write down the 2 or 3 that feel most relevant to your situation. Those are your starting points. Start there. Track what changes. And if this video raised questions about your own specific situation, whether about your blood pressure medication, timing, your risk for sleep apnea, or what your HRV trends might be telling you, please bring those questions to your doctor. Print out a list if that helps. These are important conversations, and they deserve to happen. A reminder that everything shared in this video is general health information based on current cardiovascular research and clinical experience. It is not a substitute for personalized medical care. Please work with your own physician before changing any medication schedules or making significant health decisions. If this video was useful to you, I would genuinely appreciate you sharing it with someone over 60 in your life: a parent, a spouse, a sibling, a close friend, because the people most affected by these patterns are often the people who have never had someone explain them clearly. Take good care of your heart. It has been faithful to you every minute of your life. Give it the evening it deserves. I will see you in the next one.